And welcome to this week's episode of the UFO Show on the Area 51 Sports Network. My name is Adam. I'm here with Andy, as always. And today we have from Sportsnet 650, Bick Nizzar. Bick, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for the invite, guys. This is awesome.
So before we jump in, I think we all have to ask the question, what is it like arguing with the guy that signs your paycheck every day?
No, it's awesome, man. This is I think people think that there's like a fear in it because it's like, oh no, I'm going to lose my job. I get to say all the things I want to say to the boss all the time. It's so great.
There you go. Don't have to say it behind his back. You can just tell him on the air.
Exactly, and he thinks I'm joking all the time. It's awesome.
So let's jump into the betting world, brought to you today by Bet99 Sportsbook, so bet99.com. If you go over to area51sportsnetwork.com, initial deposit of $600, you get back $600 to bet. So great deal. Make sure to check that out. And we got a huge slate of games. The NFL is back, preseason. You got some Olympics still going on. We got some baseball, got some basketball futures up. We got some NHL futures, so it's going to be a big show today. So let's jump in right away. Okay, so why don't we start with some NFL preseason? And yes, the NFL is back today. So we got the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Dallas Cowboys in the Hall of Fame game. So Pittsburgh's at minus 139. Dallas is at plus 123. So, Vic, going into these type of preseason games, how do you view the betting?
I'm generally trying to side on this, like take the side of quarterback play, right? Because you're going to get third, maybe even fourth string quarterbacks who's got the better QB depth. And I know it's tough in preseason. Obviously, everyone's just trying to scrap together some semblance of a playbook. But when I'm betting preseason, and I do have a side on tonight, I'm taking the quarterback depth every single time. Yeah, you're not going to see Dak or Ben Roethlisberger tonight, but Garrett Gilbert and Ben DiNucci, guys who've been taking real snaps. I know Dwayne Haskins on the other side for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That to me is where the game is going to be won or lost, because you need teams to still be able to move the ball despite your third and fourth stringers out there.
So who do you got, Pittsburgh or Dallas, for tonight?
For tonight, I took Dallas. I grabbed it at plus 2.5. So I'm rooting for the Cowboys tonight.
So on bet99.com, we got plus 2 is minus 10 for the Dallas Cowboys, plus 123. And then the over-under is minus 110. Or sorry, over-under is 31.5. So why don't we look at some future NFLs? We do, we are in the time where we're allowed to bet on things like who's going to win the Super Bowl, which conference is going to win the Super Bowl, which division. So I'll throw out the top 5 for you here for Super Bowl on bet99.com. We got the Kansas City Chiefs at plus 440, Tampa Bay plus 640, Baltimore plus 1,100, Buffalo plus 1,100, and Green Bay plus 1,200. And for everybody here on the West Coast, the Seattle Seahawks are at plus 2,300. So where are you going with that?
So just off of the top 5 that you gave me there, like I'm intrigued by Baltimore. I'm a little bit down on Kansas City. And that doesn't mean they're not the overwhelming favorite. Price point matters if I'm going to jump on the Chiefs. And right now, I'd rather just wait to see what happens through weeks 4. Maybe you get a different number for the Chiefs. It's a question of value than it is actual power ranking, how good the Chiefs are, because I think they're spectacular. It's just I think everyone's just assuming that the team is better. It's like, oh, well, the offensive line isn't dinged up from the Super Bowl, so the team is better all of a sudden. Well, they made a lot of changes, and all that has to get integrated into it. Now you're getting some big money Mahomes deal. How does that hurt the rest of the roster? All that has to get taken into equation, and it's fair to wonder if the Chiefs are going to have as easy a job in the regular season. So if they go 2-3 at some point, do your odds on NFL futures look different? So I'm waiting on the Chiefs. The Ravens intrigue me. The other teams, not so much. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, obviously, I think will be strong, and I think we'll see a better version of them than we saw last regular season. I think we'll see a team closer to what we saw in the Super Bowl, just because now it's a whole season. They're bringing back everyone. If they have a few health concerns, which they didn't last year, then you can see a couple of spots show up, but having certain amount of depth because of all your starters returning, you can get to slowly integrate all your future stars. The Bucs, I know it's chalk, but those are the two teams of the 6 that you mentioned there that interest me the most: the Bucs and the Ravens.
See, I really like the Bills plus 1100. Josh Allen's got that monster arm. Him and Stephon Diggs, probably. I mean, you could argue Adams and Rodgers, but they're probably the best receiver QB combo. Your division's soft. I like the Bills at plus 100 or 1100. Excuse me. I really like that bet.
My worry with the Bills is Josh Allen going to get better? That's my question. It was last year the career season, or is it still a ongoing progression? I know how raw he was, but that's my biggest question. Is he was so great last year. Fans are back in the building this year. How will that impact him? Because we know he tends to get a bit frazzled. If that was the best version of Josh Allen we're seeing, then I'm a little bit worried at that price point. If there's more to come for him, then okay, I'm a bit more intrigued. But where exactly did Buffalo get significantly better than they were last year?
Well, it's a good point. I mean, they didn't get significantly better, I don't think, anywhere. I mean, you could maybe say the receiver depth is a little bit better down, 4, 5, 6. But again, does that really make that much of an impact in a game?
No, but I still have my concerns over their offensive line. They were, above average last year. Are they going to get better there? That's something that's fair to wonder. And then, as far as defensively, I do like Tre'Davious White, one of my favorites. Obviously, when Poyer and Hyde are going, the secondary can be really strong, but are they going to be elite up front? That's something that they need to figure out. They've dedicated some resources there, obviously, with Ed Oliver, a high pick there. They've signed Jerry Hughes. So I still feel like last year was a chance for Buffalo to take a step, and they absolutely took it. But retaining that spot is going to be difficult, and I'm a little concerned for their prospects, especially having to go up against Mahomes in the AFC, Baltimore in the AFC. There's just so many teams with staying power, and we see teams fade after one quick blip there in the AFC. Tennessee had their moment, and they fade out. I just kind of feel like Buffalo might be following a similar script, trying to go against the stalwarts in the AFC.
No, I mean, it's a good point, too. Looking at Cleveland at plus 1,500, Myles Garrett's the best pass rusher in the NFL, right? What happens if they run into him in the playoffs, right? So, you make a good point, Beck. There's a road where they could have to beat Baltimore, Kansas City, and Cleveland just to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem for all these AFC teams that are not the Chiefs and the Ravens. To me, it's the pathway is so difficult because I think the power is probably in the AFC. I think the high end is in the AFC, and maybe the group of teams, the going 9 deep is maybe better in the NFC, but the high end in the AFC can be very, very challenging. I'm even interested in the team, maybe not for the Super Bowl, but can the LA Chargers win a playoff round because they have a weapon in Justin Herbert? Is that a team that can surprise in an underdog scenario?
Now, here's a question for you. You hear a lot about the Cleveland Browns on the People's Show. Has that deterred you from betting on them in the future?
No. I was big on them last year. I'll probably back them quite a bit this year as well. But it does kind of feel like the bandwagon has gotten kind of full on wanting to take the Cleveland Browns. Everyone loves the Browns just because they're the lovable losers. But now when they're actually good, people really want to back them even more now. They're a massive brand. So I'm curious to see how they get priced week to week in the NFL.
So I'll throw out one more for you, which is kind of shocking to me. The Arizona Arizona Cardinals, after everything that they have done this offseason, they're at plus 3,900. Like, what's going on there? They look like a stacked team in the NFC West. You know, they pick up J.J. Watt. You got Kyler Murray. You got one of the best it looks like one of the better secondaries in the league. The receiving core is absolutely incredible. So what are we missing here? Why are they so far down the list?
Who's going to block? I think that's my question, right? It's been the problem for 2 seasons now for Cliff Kingsbury. And also, it's like, what has Cliff Kingsbury proved? And I actually like Kingsbury. I thought it was an interesting hire, but it's fair to wonder, like, what has he proved at the NFL level? So, plus 3,900, that sounds right. They should be viewed as long shots. And just kind of going back to where they were last year, I thought they were an okay team, and they were, lifted up by, a Hail Mary performance as well. But they felt like an 8-win team last year. The improvements that they've made. Okay, J.J. Watt is a sexy pick, but you lose Patrick Peterson. A.J. Green is cool, but where is he at in his stage in his career? Some of the benefits and the ad that they made came at some losses as well, and I just don't look at this team that's made massive improvements. And their biggest issue has been the offensive line, and they didn't really go out to try to solve it. Rodney Hudson's is one piece. They needed more to me.
Well, the other thing, too, is that, their division is so stacked. Like, you look at the roster, they're probably on paper maybe the third. Like, for sure, I'd put Seattle and San Francisco ahead of them. And you could argue, depending what Stafford has left, that the Rams are better than Arizona, too.
Yeah, I think they're number 4 in the division with the bullet. And I'm including, the coaching conversation in with this of, McVay, Carroll, Shanahan, like all 3 of them are ahead of Cliff Kingsbury. And then the rosters are on par, best case scenario. Kyler's fun, but has he shown he can be the complete package just yet? I still think we're waiting on that to be solved. He's great for fantasy. He's going to run for yards. He's going to put up points, but is he a true blue out and out franchise QB? That's still to be determined.
Yeah, no, I agree. It kind of reminds me of Lamar Jackson, his rookie and secondary year there, right? Where he could run and throw on the run, but if you asked him to sit in the pocket 40 times a game and make passes, can he do it? Like, I don't know.
It's not just about that. It's about winning, right? Because you're not going to ask Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray to sit back there 40 times because they have the function of their legs. But it's more about, do you understand the principles that require for winning? And too often with Lamar and with Kyler, because they have this gift of, hey, my legs can bail me out of a lot of problems, you constantly just believe that, hey, I can solve something. Whereas too often it winds up being 3rd and long, and now teams are keying up on you, and it's tougher to play in that scenario. Like, one of the great things about Tom Brady is he checks down to his running back. And that sounds like it's not an efficient play, but getting sacked is worse. And Tom Brady too often realizes when defenses win plays. And so he'll just get 3 yards with his running back. It's fine. You play for another down. That's something I look at Kyler and Lamar is like, that's something they have to figure out.
Well, you play for another down when you remember which down you are actually on.
That's right. That's a good description, Vic. That's what I was kind of trying to say in a very poor way, right? Is that, sometimes they try to make the heroic play all the time instead of just throwing the ball away or taking the 1-yard gain, right? So thank you.
So let's move a little bit out more local with the NFL in the Seattle Seahawks. So right now, Russell Wilson has the 5th best odds at plus 1,600 to win MVP. Is this Russ's year, or do you see, Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers stepping up?
I would still lean towards like a Mahomes or something like that. The Russ thing is, similar to what we saw last year. Nobody saw the first 5-6 weeks coming. So if you wanted to believe in the idea that, hey, the let Russ cook thing is going to be real, now's your chance to do it. Because as soon as like week 1 goes by, and if he blows up for 4 or 5 touchdowns, it's done. You can't jump back in on that bandwagon. But when it comes to preseason, like this is really your only chance if you wanted to bet him. I'm skeptical that there's going to be this wide open offense and it's going to change. So I mean, me personally, 5th best odds seems a bit overvalued. But if you're going to do it, like you can't wait until the season starts and then think, oh, here's my chance to jump on it. The value is in now. I still think we're going to see a more conservative approach from the Seahawks.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they really changed their offense too much. They, kind of tweaked the offensive line a bit, but, he's got the same receivers. He's got Metcalf and Lockett. Chris Carson, we'll see if he gets healthy. So, but this could be a monster year for Metcalf, I think, for sure.
I'm just skeptical. Like the numbers will be there. I think he'll have a good season and we'll be impressed. And I think like the tempo change might be something. And I think he'll get a better Seahawks offense, more consistent than what we saw last year. I just don't think they're going to explore the high end to necessarily put up a 40, 45 touchdowns. That's going to be necessary to get yourself into the conversation for MVP. If Russell Wilson puts up 36 touchdowns, that's an awesome season. But given where we are in the state of the NFL of how quick some teams play and how much passing there is, there's going to be QBs that put up 40, 42, 44, and also chalk up a bunch of W's that, Russ just might get left out of the conversation.
And then let's look at the NFC West. So Seahawks have the 3rd best odds at plus 260. This is the tightest division betting-wise. So you got 49ers and Rams at plus 175, and then Arizona at plus 580 to win the division. Are you taking the Seahawks? Do you feel like something's going to happen and they're going to be able to pull out the division?
This division is crazy, and I can build credible cases for 3 of the 4 teams. 49ers, Rams, and Seahawks. Arizona, I'll be stunned if they wind up winning the division. But, for me, just looking at it, I would just blindly take the team with the 3rd best odds to win the NFC West, just because of how close all 3 teams are. Now, you say it's a Seattle. Or is Seattle necessarily my favorite? I'm really intrigued with the 49ers. I got to admit, like, you have a great year, and then you try to follow up a Super Bowl appearance with all the injuries that they had. Most of that roster is still very much intact. Now, the brain drain of losing your defensive coordinators and all that sort of stuff, and Robert Saleh moves off, will there be a bit of a drawback from how they are at a coaching level? But as far as talent on the roster, there's plenty of talent on this roster. And if they make that switch from Garoppolo to Trey Lance, that's a higher high than Garoppolo can ever try to attempt to get to. And that could boost them to that 12, 13, 14 wins. Now we have an extra game stratosphere. So I'm most intrigued by the 49ers. But at the 3rd best odds, like I'm playing value, and that to me makes a lot of sense for the Seattle Seahawks.
Now, one thing that we have to remember when betting on the NFL this year is that COVID does play a factor. So, for example, like Minnesota is the lowest vaccinated team. Mm-hmm. So would that maybe prevent you from betting on them, knowing that these COVID rules exist where teams could have forfeits just based off of the fact that their players are unvaccinated, and if players start testing positive, it could really cause some issues in the scheduling.
Yeah, if I'm doing futures or taking season win totals, not that I'm just going to start betting unders. I'm just going to avoid them. Like I don't need to have a pick on that team. Mm-hmm. I can just say there's too much uncertainty. If something happens and they lose one game because of a forfeiture, that's massive to your bottom line as far as season win totals. So I just won't pick those teams that I'm unsure about. Now, other teams, you try to glean as much information as you can. Teams that, crest that 90% mark, I'll just say, okay, I'm willing to bet that team on their season win totals. Like, for instance, okay, you bring up Minnesota. I'm just not going to select them. I'll scroll right past them, and I'll just take the next team.
Yeah,
I agree. The reason I don't pick Minnesota is because they have Kirk Cousins, though. It's nothing to do with COVID.
Sure.
has nothing to do with the Green Bay Packers hat you're wearing right now.
No, not at all. Not at all.
To be fair, when would he be wrong though? Minnesota's always unders.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is like an interesting perspective on the betting world, because we haven't really seen a sport say if you are going to miss games, they're going to be forfeits. We thought we would see it in the NHL with the Canucks, where they would reduce the schedule, but they were like, nope, we're just going to play, 10 games in 15 days type thing. So it's going to be interesting with the NFL, because they are really taking this seriously this year. They don't want a recap of last year where, what was it, the Ravens are getting delayed by 2 weeks and playing on a Wednesday night type thing.
I think it's just one of those situations where everyone learned. Now, like, we were critical about the NHL's return to play plan and how they put the Canucks in that tough spot. But it's one of those things that gets decided upon months earlier, and this is just the rollout. Everyone agreed to play 56. Now the NFL is the first one to restart. Well, I guess the MLB. But the NFL is really taking it a bit more serious, because they don't have the runway like the MLB does of having a full, lengthy part of the calendar. The NFL's got to get it within, a handful of weeks. So they took a harder line this season, and I think it to be honest, like, I know the players are fighting back, or some players are fighting back, but like I don't necessarily agree with the pushback. It makes sense as far as vaccinations go. That's just where I look at it and say, yeah, it's safer for you, so go on and get it done.
Yeah. Do you think that any game, there's no bet on this, but do you think that any games will be postponed or forfeited due to COVID this year?
I want to say no. The protocols are in place, and you hope players follow them. But I want to say no, because how many were postponed last year? It was probably like 5 or 6.
There were a couple that were postponed. They weren't canceled though, but they just moved the schedule around and moved bye weeks, and all the players were really pissed off about it.
I'll say no, but it's a very weak vote towards no.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes, because like, it's funny you mentioned baseball, because what baseball did is, if the individual player tests positive, they have to sit out, right? Like the Yankees are missing. I saw more tests today. I think Gary Sanchez is going to sit out for them. Whereas in the NFL, like, you can't necessarily sit out, your entire offensive line. Like, that ruins the integrity of football, right? So to me, like, I think it's inevitable a player is going to test positive. And just the way the NFL is with their QB rooms and their offensive line rooms and stuff, like, let's say one of the safeties on Seattle gets COVID. Now the entire probably defensive backfield starters are going to sit out, right? So at that point, I think the NFL would probably step in and cancel the game rather than show, a preseason of defense versus, an NFL starting caliber offense in week 8 or something, right? So I'm going to say yes.
I would just be curious about the league's motivations at that point. They were willing to put the Cleveland Browns out in that tough spot in a playoff game. How much do they actually care of not missing the TV money, right? So that's it's a big thing for the NFL to cancel a game, like, massive deal. I'll believe it when I see it.
So once again, this is a UFO show on the Area 51 Sports Network, brought to you by Bet99.com. Head over to area51sportsnetwork.com. $600 back, up to $600 back on initial deposit when you head over to our website and click the betting link. So let's finish up here with a little bit of Olympic soccer, or Olympic football as they call it. We got the huge match today. We got Sweden, Canada. Sweden's at -123. Canada's at +375. Is this Christine Sinclair's gold medal?
So trying to put my heart outside of it, I do think Sweden's a better team, but like, I'm blown away by Canada's defense. It has been really strong these last 3 matches. And in a match like this, like knockout style play, you got to try to score a goal. And the way Canada's defense has been so strong, I think Scott has been phenomenal as like that holding midfielder, trying to push everything away. Gilles is winning everything in the air, which has been awesome. So it's like, I think they're going to be really tough to break down. And if you're not going to get scored on, which I kind of feel like Canada's going to slow this game down and, force Sweden to try to create, does that leave themselves open on the back? I kind of like Canada's spot in this. Again, Sweden's a better team, but you got to try to score a goal against them, and I think they'll be hard pressed to try to get a goal.
So, do you see this game ending in or full time or going the distance?
Yeah, we'll send it to penalties. Absolutely, it's coin flip at that stage.
Yeah, I would take extra time, penalty kicks, whatever. It's funny, these big matches, they seem to, unless one team scores early, it seems to be a very defensive match, and that plays, like Vic said, right into Canada's sort of I guess wheelhouse, you could say. So I would definitely be taking the overtime, extra time, penalty kicks, whatever you want to put it this way. It won't be settled in 90 minutes.
I do think like the tempo of the game will be a lot slower, which probably favors Canada. And because for what you mentioned, Andy, for a massive match, if there's like 20 minutes off the start where they're just kind of feeling each other out, who does that work best for? It's going to allow Canada to grow into the game, to build off of kind of their identity. Can you create that stable back line and then build out moving forward? That's going to be massive. Like Sweden's good. They have probably a bit more skill level at the front line, but I would say Canada's defense, the way they've been playing this tournament, very impressive. And the Americans, they have so much talent on that front line. They just were able to make 3 full subs, and it's like still stellar up front. And I know they had a lot of chemistry problems as far as trying to link up play and everything like that. But every time they tried advancing one-on-one, someone was there to push them away. Lawrence, it's just, every time they got repelled, and they were kind of resorted to just lobbing balls in the box and hoping for headers. Canada can win those, and so I think Canada's going to be very, very tough to try to get a goal on.
And I was actually very surprised to see that the U.S. only beat the U.S.-Australia score 4-3. Like, I don't know, maybe that Canada game really shook them because they don't allow 3 goals very often, the U.S. team.
Yeah, a bronze medal game, I guess you could open it up a bit and be a bit more relaxed.
Well, there is also one factor that, I kind of touched on in the beginning, and that is that this is probably Sinclair's biggest moment. She was denied that gold medal or silver medal in London by, we all know the story around that. Referees no longer allowed to really referee.
So you can say the worst officiating we've ever seen in sports. You're allowed to say it.
Exactly. So do you think that we see a vintage Christine Sinclair moment tonight, something that, really puts her on that pedestal of that we can consider her one of the greatest footballers of all time?
Well, she already is. If she's getting a goal today, I think it'll come off like a set piece. Because I think we can all say the pace isn't there anymore. Like going back to 2012, that goal, the first goal she scored in that game, where she's picks it up from behind the play, zags through someone, cuts across, slices through, and scores the goal. Like that's not there game to game anymore. And we saw her kind of pick up an injury late in that match versus America. So if she's getting a goal, I'm not expecting the vintage Sinclair, predatory in the box and dominant. I'm kind of expecting something offset pieces. She's a bit more of a central link-up figure now than she is the closer. Still very productive and still, very integral to how they play. But I'm looking off something of set pieces. Maybe she bags a header because that's where her goal-scoring instincts might be able to come out to show because she's not going to win foot races anymore. But in the box, off of dead play, she can beat someone in the air.
You have Ronaldo finally winning his big tournament internationally. You got Messi this year winning his big tournament this year. It just makes sense that it's Christine Sinclair's year. Like, this may be her last international game. We don't know. She's close to retirement. She already has most goals in international football history. This just feels like it just has that feeling that this is going to be her crowning moment.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Fingers crossed.
Well, I think that will do it for this week. We talked a lot of football, touched on the women's big gold medal game. That's going to be at 5 a.m. If you're in Vancouver tomorrow. It was supposed to be 7 p.m., but they did switch it up because of the heat. So it's going to be played later on in the day, which is great for us. Mm-hmm. If they win, you get a whole day to celebrate.
Yeah, for sure. I'm still going to be waking up early for it. I can't wait, man. I'm so excited for this match. 9 years in the making.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this week, Vic. Do you want to shout out all your shows, your social, where people can find you?
Yeah, it's at Bic650 Twitter, Instagram. That's where you can find me. It is Bick and the Boss as well on Canucks Central on Sportsnet 650 at 1 o'clock Monday to Friday. I'll be back next week.
And just remember before we go, Bick's famous tweet, every Seahawks game is the same, but every Seahawks game is different. Look for that to repeat again this year.
For sure it will. For sure it will.
Thanks, Bick.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.